Oh, hello. Hi. Happy Tuesday. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Lucy, CEO at Stribe, and just as a quick reminder, as everyone is filtering in, we are employee survey and engagement software for HR teams who want that real insight into how their people are doing without all the faff of the analysis. As a reminder, we run these sessions because the best conversations about work rarely make it into the boardroom, and we want to change that. While we wait for a few more people to join, and it is a busy session today, please do say hello in the chat, pop your name, your organization, maybe where you're tuning in from. And honestly, I would really love to hear how your brain is feeling this morning. Maybe you're beautifully awake and energized. Maybe you are feeling just that little bit foggy. I know Naomi and I have had a quick check-in this morning already. Make sure your chat is set to everyone. So when you open up the chat, it will be at the bottom. The chat button is at the bottom of the Zoom window. Do please make sure you set that to everyone. There's a little blue toggle in the to box. Just pop that to everyone so we can all see each other's chats. These sessions are always better when we can see everyone in the room, we can feel the vibrancy of the conversations. So do make the most of that. A few quick housekeeping things before we get going. We'll be recording today. You'll get the link in the follow-up email so you can rewatch, share, or send to a colleague who really needs it. Please use the chat throughout. I can already see things ticking over, which is so lovely. Do keep it coming. It really gives us so much energy throughout the session. So really do, as you're kind of hearing things from Naomi, we'd love to hear your reactions, your questions, things that resonate. We really do love seeing it. For those bigger questions, pop them in the Q&A tab. Where you found that chat button, there's also a Q&A tab. I will just make sure you can view and upvote and comment on the questions. I've just done that now. I can see, Kirsten, you've already popped that in, which is great. So do pop any bigger questions into that Q&A box. It just helps us keep things nice and organized, and we'll make sure Naomi gets to them in the last 10 minutes. You can upvote questions and you can add comments to them. So do, if you're seeing something come in that's quite similar or you're really interested in, make the most of those features. And the format today, you're getting a short intro from me right now. Hello, and so lovely to see you all. Hi, Kate. Hi, Kirsten. Hi, Debs. Hi, Kirsty. Everyone's joining us, which is so, so lovely. Naomi will present for around 30-40 minutes, and then we will have a Q&A at the end, and we'll wrap up around 11. If you can't make the whole webinar today, absolutely no worries. Like I said, the recording is coming out later, so you can always catch up then. Now, today's topic, we talk a lot about mental health at work, and rightly so. I know we run a lot of webinars and content on it, but there's a conversation that sits right next to it that we are really just skipping over completely, and that's around brain health itself. Brain fog, cognitive overload, burnout that doesn't go away after a holiday. I can feel people nodding as we as I list all of these out. So let me know if any of these are resonating with you right now. The inability to concentrate, make decisions, feel sharp in the way that you used to. I know for me, sometimes it's getting words out. I had that the other day. There was a lot of times I was just stumbling over my words. These aren't just well-being buzzwords. They're things that are really quietly affecting the way your teams are thinking, the way they're functioning, and ultimately how they are doing their best work every single day. Those pressure points are only increasing as well. We talk about it a lot, so much so my brain is often just constantly thinking about all of that. We're thinking about AI and changing how we work, menopause, life transitions, this always on culture we have. Our lovely phones are right next to us all the time. Modern workplaces are just not designed with the way our human brain functions at its best. And that evidence is manifesting and catching up with us. I am, like I just said, exhausted just thinking about it all. But today's guest is here to change that. So Naomi Glover is an applied neuroscientist and the founding director of Neuroinformed. She holds a master's in applied neuroscience from King's College and sits as a director of the UK Brain Health Foundation as well. She's worked with some amazing, amazing people and some of the world's most complex organizations too, from your Googles and your Amazons to your NHSs and Serco, helping them understand what actually supports the brain to perform at its best. She advises HR leaders, business leaders, and policymakers, and is an international voice on brain healthy, high performing workplaces. Yeah, it does an amazing job. She has this really rare skill where she can take genuinely complicated science and turn it into things you can actually do on a Monday morning. I saw Naomi speak earlier this year at Culture Camp, and I think I honestly chewed her ear off for about 2 hours afterwards, just about everything that she spoke about and all the amazing changes that I could go away and make for my own day, let alone my team. I've been thinking about her session ever since. My tab numbers have slowly crept back up, but I think about Naomi every day and how I should reduce my tabs on my internet browser back down again. That was one of the things we spoke about a few months ago. So yeah, if you know anything about, there's so many things that kind of compete for space in my brain, and I know that she did a lot to kind of help me kind of understand that. So this is going to be a really good one. Settle in, and do keep those comments and feedback coming and the questions too. So Naomi, over to you.
Thank you so much. And what a lovely introduction. And thank you everybody for turning up this morning. I know sometimes it's a bit tricky first thing in the morning, but it's lovely that you've made time both for this and for yourself, hopefully, and for your teams, because the hope is that by spending an hour doing something like this, you can actually improve what you're doing in the long term and feel better and, more importantly, think better. So I'm not going to say anything more about my background because I think Lucy's done a fantastic job of introducing me. What I will say is that my interest in neuroscience has been huge for a long time, and it started because I noticed my daughter was struggling. My daughter was struggling at school, and she was finding it hard to learn things, finding it hard to do the work that she wanted to do. And struggling with various things. And we discovered after a while that she had dyslexia and dyscalculia. And then we found out much later that she had ADHD. And what we've noticed is that there are certain things that when your brain thinks differently, when you have a brain that thinks outside of the norm, sometimes the way that our environments and our workplaces and our schools are set up makes it even harder for our brains to function. And by making some changes to that, by changing some of the typical ways of working, by introducing some ways of working that are more brain friendly, all of a sudden it makes it much easier for people to do their best work. So it's not necessarily about accommodations today, but we will be talking about what we can do that will help everybody's brain to function better. So not just what we can do to help, say, neurodivergent people, or what can we do to help people through menopause, which is what a lot of people are asking me. But actually by creating a brain healthy workplace, the idea is that we help everybody's brain to function better. And so then it doesn't matter whether they are neurodivergent, and whether they've told us or not. It doesn't matter if they're perimenopausal and they've told us or not. It doesn't matter even if they don't realize they're perimenopausal, because a lot of people don't realize they're neurodivergent. They don't realize that they're perimenopausal. They don't realize that they have brain challenges because it's not something we talk about. So by creating a more brain-friendly, brain-healthy workplace, we can help everybody's brain to function better. So today we'll be talking a bit about what brain fog is, and how it's showing up in the workplace, and it's certainly growing. And we'll be talking about some of the things that people can do as individuals to improve how their brain is functioning, but also what workplaces can do. And that I think is really important because at the moment, what I've seen is that there is a gap in cognitive health at work. Cognitive health is about how we think, and we've done a lot on mental health, but not so much on cognitive health or on brain health. So today I'll be introducing you to some of those ideas, but I'm going to start by asking you some questions. And I'd like to start by asking you how often you use neuroscience in your work at the moment. How often do you think about people's brains at work or use neuroscience, your understanding of brains at work? Just give people a little bit of time. You should be able to join using your phone, hopefully. Have a little look and just test, see if it's working.
Are you sharing your screen, Naomi? I'm not
Oh,
sure
I am.
it's.
And you're not seeing it.
No, we're not seeing it.
Ha ha.
I was just
Oh,
typing in the chat and I just
okay.
realized that
There
it's a
we
QR
go.
code.
Apologies, apologies.
Okay, everyone that's answered in the chat, just yeah, it's on the QR code. Sorry,
There we
Naomi.
go. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, Pam, you haven't. Pam saying, I thought I'd zoned out and missed something. No,
No,
no.
it was
That's
me. That was
us.
clearly a brain fog moment.
Right. Uh,
Thank you, everyone. I thought, oh, they've all gone away.
the pressure, I know.
It's great. I know some people will be watching this or listening to this in the background, or maybe even listening while they're driving somewhere. So I'm not going to expect everybody to answer, but we'll just try and get a few answers because it's really helpful.
It's fab. And
Thank you very much.
while we're waiting, I'll shout out Kirsty from TMO Highways. She's a fellow Norfolk resident, which I am. So you guys have something in common. But she's also just said she's a master NLP practitioner, and it's completely changed the way she leads and communicates. So you've got some, yeah, a great audience today.
That's fantastic. That's really interesting. I started out looking at NLP as well. I did my NLP 21 years ago, and got super interested in the brain then. And then I decided I was going to go away and study applied neuroscience, and that's got me even more interested. So now I'm, totally obsessed. So we can see that there are few people using neuroscience a little bit at work, but most people are not using it at all, which is about normal, which is because neuroscience is really new for the workplace. We've only just discovered how neuroscience can really impact on the workplace. And so it's not surprising that most HR practitioners, most occupational therapists, occupational medicine people, L&D people typically haven't yet been trained in neuroscience. Most leaders and managers haven't yet been trained in neuroscience. But as anybody who is using it will know, it's absolutely a game changer. So today, I hope to convert you to the idea that neuroscience can be transformational. I know we're using the Q&A on the session on the Zoom, but if you want to add any questions in here as well, you're very welcome to. This is particularly useful if you're a bit concerned about anonymity. Sometimes people have questions that they want to ask that are very personal to them and they don't necessarily want to share. So you're very welcome to ask questions using the Slido or else in the Zoom, whatever's most comfortable for you. So I've got another question for you. Are you experiencing any of the following? Hopefully you can now see this Slido.
Yes, don't worry. I can see it. I'm playing along too.
It, yes, join in, Lucy.
I'd feel left out if I didn't.
Absolutely. So, as is typical in pretty much every session, well, every session that I've run in the last 4 years or so, the top challenge that people are experiencing is brain fog or difficulty concentrating. And this session actually it's a bit lower than usual. Typically, I see that around between 65 and 75% of every audience that I speak to are experiencing brain fog or they're experiencing difficulty concentrating. Um, Again, people are experiencing decision paralysis. They're finding it really hard to make decisions. They're experiencing memory lapses. And those things can contribute to you feeling anxious or feeling overwhelmed. But feeling anxious or overwhelmed also can make you find it harder to make decisions, can make it harder to concentrate. And that, when you're not concentrating, when you're unable to really focus, that makes it much harder to remember things. So these things they're individual issues, but they're very much intertwined. And I'm wondering, so you're experiencing this for yourself, are you aware of team members or work colleagues who are also experiencing those things? And if you want to say anything more about what you're experiencing, please feel free to write in the chat box. Oh, I'm sorry, Kirsten, it wouldn't let you tick everything that you wanted. I've had people say that before. I'm sorry about that. Sometimes there's one at the bottom that says all of them, and I do get that ticked quite a lot.
I think it's quite good. That in itself is a bit eye-opening, isn't it? Like Kirsten says.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the things that people said a lot at Culture Camp, Lucy, where we met, and frequently at other sessions, people are shocked that so many other people are experiencing the same symptoms because typically people are not talking about it. They keep it very, very quiet. They find it quite embarrassing. They worry about it a lot and they worry how it will reflect on them. They worry about what will people think. They worry it will hold them back at work. So it's one of these things that people tend not to talk about. And this is why, and I think this is really interesting, that while you are aware that the top challenge for you is brain fog or difficulty concentrating, the top challenge that you're seeing in other people is about being overwhelmed or having difficulty balancing work and personal life. And that's because many fewer people are prepared to say that they're having brain fog. Although actually, you're clearly very inclusive HR people because people are obviously opening up to you about brain fog, which is great. So it's wonderful that you're actually hearing about it. So we can see it's a vast problem, both for leaders, for HR leaders, and for the people that they're managing, for their teams, and their colleagues. And what are the biggest challenges that you're experiencing at the moment? It could be any of the things we've already mentioned. It could be something completely different. Pam's saying that she's been QAing appraisals and she's really happy to see people mentioning new or emergent challenges that they've got with neurodivergence, medical needs, diabetes, disability, hearing loss, and perimenopause. It screams psychological safety to me because they're opening up. I absolutely agree, Pam. That's really fantastic. It's really fantastic because I speak to a lot of a lot of people in organizations that are not psychologically safe. Typically, the organizations that speak to me are already psychologically safe. They're already doing a lot for psychological safety and a lot for mental health at work. And then they realize that they've got this gap with brain fog. And so they want to address that. Whereas the individuals who come to me, saying that they've got the biggest problems with brain fog tend to be in the organizations where there's a lot less psychological safety. And they daren't talk about it. So top challenges, as is really common again in the sessions, focus is a massive issue. It's not just you. It's really common right across the board. And I don't know what the gender mix is today, but a lot of people say to me, "Oh, it's probably because when you talk to sessions, when you're doing sessions, most of the people are perimenopausal women, and some of the sessions are focused on that, absolutely. But many of the sessions that I do are equally gender split, and we're talking about how can we improve brain health in building design or in workplace design. And so it can be many more men present. And I hear it from everybody at every age, right across the board. So it's, yes, I'm getting these same figures, these same statistics of around 75% of people struggling with brain fog and focus, even when we've got a sort of 50-50 roughly split of men and women. So that's very interesting, isn't it? And what we know is that our brains are changing all the time, and they're affecting absolutely everything we do. They're affecting how you feel and your emotions and how you relate to other people and your actions, your behaviors, your decision making, your ability to plan, your ability to choose the right options or choose the right habits. And what most people don't think about is their brain. So they tend to know, most people, more about their phone than they do about their brain. And they know very little about how they can look after it. Many people think that it's impossible to do anything to improve it. So I would like to debunk that today, and just make it really clear that our brains are changing, but they can change for the better or they can change for the worse, depending on what we do. So your brain is adapting right the way throughout your life. And when you know how to do something with it, how you can change it, you can use it to improve your focus. You can use it to manage stress and overwhelm and information overload. And you can use it to protect and strengthen your brain no matter what age you are. And we've seen brain changes and brain improvements in people up into their 80s and even their 90s. So this is very much not just a young person's opportunity. This is an any person opportunity, and it's particularly important for HR leaders at a time when we have an aging workforce and people are really worried about losing their edge. So we know that everybody, not just women, everybody will be experiencing changes in their brain throughout their lives. But women do experience it more. And of course, anybody who also has XX chromosomes, who is having those typical female hormones, or who is introducing estrogen. So it's not just a challenge for women; it's a challenge for lots of people. But particularly these challenges affect women because we have brain development changing during our adolescence, but that's in men as well. We have menstrual cycle having a major influence during at various points during menstrual cycle, so it can improve. Sometimes we feel sharper, sometimes we feel foggier. That can clash with pain, but it can influence your focus, your mood, the amount of cognitive effort required for things. We see massive brain changes in pregnancy and not just in mums, but also in dads, interestingly. But again, this research is super new, but we see massive changes in the brain. So when people talk about mummy brain, brain fog, baby brain, they sometimes call it, these are physical changes that we're seeing in the brain. And so it's not surprising that people are experiencing changes in their cognition, in the way that they think. And then again in perimenopause, which we're much more aware of now, but which has been really quite a recent change in workplaces, that all of a sudden we're aware of the impact. And I'm sure that you're aware of the big menopause study that happened last year, but in that study, 15,000 women took part, and 86% of them were experiencing brain fog, 70% of them struggling with fatigue, and 96% of them saying that their menopause impacts their quality of life. 8 out of 10 affected at work, 1 in 20 having quit their jobs because of symptoms, and 40% of them, remarkably, have considered leaving or reducing their role. So these are vast numbers having a huge effect on our workplaces, and we can't afford to lose these very, very valuable, very experienced people just because they happen to be having a change. At that point, only 35% of workplaces had a menopause policy. I know that that is now going up, and that we've got a change in the law that requires people to have a menopause action plan. What I still am aware of, though, is that many people's menopause policies, many people's action plans don't yet cover brain fog. They don't have practical steps to address brain fog at work. So that's one of the things that I'm really keen to emphasize to HR leaders, that when you're putting these policies in place, when you're thinking about menopause action plans or equality action plans or neuro inclusion, please think about brain fog, because it's affecting so many people. And so we know that recently menopause is not just a gynecological transition, it's a brain transition, it's a neurological transition. And so we see brain changes again right the way through our menopause transition, just as we see changes through pregnancy transitions. And those brain changes can cause things like disturbed sleep and memory lapses and the brain fog. But again, we have this kind of vicious cycle where people don't sleep well, so they wake up feeling worse. They're unable to, they've got to get up very early to get to work. And then they're not functioning at their best. They might be anxious about the fact that they're not as fresh or that they haven't slept. Increasingly, people are quite paranoid about their sleep, and they're tracking their sleep a lot. And that can lead to something called orthosomnia, where people are actually tracking their sleep can make their sleep worse. So there's an awful lot that we can do as organisations and that HR can do in order to address some of that. Sometimes, like, the simplest thing is giving people flexible start times, so that if somebody has slept badly, they can actually catch up instead of having an alarm set really early. Just small changes where it's possible. I recognise that not all workplaces can do that, but where you can, it makes a huge difference. What else I'm seeing that often workplaces are addressing less at the moment is the overlaps. And so typically people have policies for menopause. They might have a policy for ADHD or neurodiversity. They might have a policy for parents. They might have a policy for carers. And that's great. All of those things are individually great. But the biggest challenges come in those overlaps. So these are the things which are having the biggest impact on people's ability to focus, on their brain fog, on their sense of overwhelm, and on their likelihood of burnout. So when people have, for example, and this is not, not the only example, but for example, you're you're caring for people, you've got kids, you're chronically stressed, and then you hit perimenopause and your hormones start to change. And all of a sudden, you're not sleeping as well, or you may not even realize that your hormones have changed because people are still not that well educated about it. We're not taught to watch out for it. And so then we see these changes. We see people starting to panic. They start having massive anxiety that they've never had before. They start having kind of physical symptoms that they've never had before. But if they don't get the hot flashes, and a lot of people don't, they don't recognize that it's a perimenopause thing. So then they just panic that there's something wrong with them. And sometimes they panic that they're getting dementia. And sometimes they panic that they're going mad. And sadly, there was a case quite recently where a 52-year-old woman, very high-flying architect, actually killed herself because she was so terrified that she was losing her edge. She was going to be losing her career and losing all of the things that she had built up over the years. And they latterly realised that she had hit perimenopause, hadn't realised, and that she had also had ADHD. And we know that ADHD or other neurodivergent traits tend, when they coincide with perimenopause, everything is bigger, the impact is larger, the brain impact is larger for a whole host of reasons, which I go into in other sessions. But that doesn't, what I'm trying to say is that this is not the fault of individual people in the workplace, but it is something that workplaces need to be aware of, and we need to be putting support in place so that even if people aren't aware of the challenges that they have, those support mechanisms are in place for everybody. Because when we put something in place for somebody who is struggling with ADHD, actually that same thing will help people who are perimenopausal, people who are struggling to focus for other reasons. So thinking about brain fog, what do you know about brain fog? What are the sorts of symptoms that you think about when you're thinking about brain fog? Feel free to put it in the chat. How would you recognize brain fog in yourself or in somebody else? Oh, Kirsten, yeah, dealing with perimenopause and ADHD and caring for your son yourself, yeah. And that's the other thing about neurodivergent parents. Typically also have neurodivergent kids, and the neurodivergent kids haven't been well cared for in the education system, haven't been well catered for in a lot of schools. And so there's an awful lot of anxiety in children. So the parents are worrying about their anxious children. They're struggling to get children into school. And again, some workplaces are fantastic at supporting parents, and giving them, additional information and giving them parent training if they want it, if they ask for it, or parent coaching, so that they can better understand how to support themselves and their children. But most organisations don't think about the parent experience. So that's something actually I'm working on. There's a wonderful new thing which I will send you a link to later, but we're looking at how we can improve that parent experience too. So when we're thinking about brain fog, people are saying words, concepts disappearing. normal tasks being harder to do, difficulty making decisions, being unable to string a sentence together, being unable to find the right words, forgetting your words, struggling to focus, struggling to complete tasks. It's this, the individual word loss is huge for a lot of people, particularly if you're regularly in very, very senior meetings. So it's one of the things that I hear the most senior leaders panicking about the most. And that might be because they've got brain fog from perimenopause or from pregnancy, or from any one of a number of other issues. So typically most of the things that we're talking about when we're talking about brain fog is difficulty concentrating or focusing, a sense of general confusion about what's going on sometimes, not being able to catch on to things quite as quickly as we normally would. Feeling fatigue, not having the right words, as many of you have described, slow thought processes, slower reaction time. You might need longer to listen to something, you might need to listen to something twice. Trouble paying attention. So you're trying to focus on one thing, but your brain wanders off. Forgetfulness, losing that train of thought, mental exhaustion. So these are all the things which I'm sure are very familiar to many of you. And brain fog is, happens when you get caring responsibilities. It happens when you get menopause. It happens for a whole host of different reasons. So it's more common in people who are neurodivergent or who are in perimenopause, but it's also really common in people when they're bereaved, when they have chronic stress, when they're having challenges with parenting, when they're caring for others, veterans, when they're bullied at work. All sorts of things can impact on our brain's ability to focus and an impact on our brain fog. And so we do see that women experience more of these overlapping challenges, but I'm hearing these same things from everybody, not just from women, that everything's overwhelming. I can't make decisions. I can't tell anyone how bad it is. They think I can't do my job. My memory's broken. My emotions are all over the place. I overthink everything. I can't turn my brain off or I can't turn my brain on. And we're seeing that this is impacting on burnout as well. So burnout increases when people are having burnout. Typically, they're also experiencing these symptoms of brain fog. Brain fog, if you keep having brain fog, it's going to lead to more burnout because you're finding it harder and harder to focus, harder and harder to accomplish the normal things that you do. But again, we see there are these sort of people who are more likely to be affected by it because there are more overlaps, more challenges. So that's not surprising. The other thing is that it's affecting, as you'll be aware, engagement. But in the UK at the moment, so these are global figures, that 13% of working people globally are engaged, 73% not engaged, 15% actively disengaged to the point where they're actually harmful to the team. In the UK last year, I think the statistic in the UK was 10% of people engaged. So we've got a real problem with engagement. And, as I showed you, this impact of burnout, the impact of brain fog, that's one of the key things causing the engagement levels to be so very low. But then we're also seeing another challenge with cognitive health, and this is cognitive health is about how we're thinking, remember, and not just how we feel, which is about AI. And so people are describing a new type of cognitive fatigue. Some people are calling it AI brain fry. Some people are calling it cognitive atrophy. They feel like their brain is getting worse as a result of using AI. And for some people, it looks like it is. We're seeing some research coming out now showing that people are having higher levels of decision fatigue, they're making more errors, and they're more likely to quit. That was some research just from last year from Boston Consulting Group. So we know that AI is going to be a challenge for how we think. But again, it's something which most organizations aren't yet aware that they can do something to address. So that's one of the things we're looking at. So have we got um, any questions at the moment? I'm just having a quick look at how we're doing for
We
time.
we're good for time and we do have some in. Are you wanting to pick them up now
Well,
or?
it might be good to just see if there's anything now that that specifically we can then address because it's quite useful to it. There's so many different
Yeah.
things that we can do. If there's something that's really come out, let's address that straight away.
Yeah, we've got a couple here. So we've got one around from Ian. We're a creative company whose staff all work remotely. We're aware and recognize all of this as a real issue. However, are you able to give us any practical advice to help? We have very flexible hours. We have weekly catch-ups that are not work related. Regular team get-togethers to help with team spirit. However, because our team are creative thinkers who tend to overthink, working in a home environment is extremely challenging. Can you suggest any practical things we can do to help? So that's quite a big question to just to
It is, but it's a
scratch.
really good one, and it's fantastic that you're so aware of the challenges that people are having. I think one of the biggest things you can do is ask these sorts of questions that we've we've been talking about today. And it would be interesting. I mean, tell me in the chat, how many people are currently asking about brain fog, cognitive health, focus, decision making, or are you mostly asking about mental health, anxiety, how people feel? Is anybody asking about cognitive health? Because what we saw at that event where we met Lucy was that it was a very, very, very inclusive group of HR and culture specialists, and 93% of them said that they were addressing mental health at work. They were really on it. They were fantastically supportive. They were very aware of psychological safety. Only 4% of them were
Yeah.
measuring or addressing cognitive health at work. So we know that this is a big gap. And it's a big gap because it's new research. So
Hmm.
people haven't been taught about it. People haven't been shown how to address it. It's very new, but we can see just how impactful it is.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
that seems to be what's coming through in the chat as well, is maybe we ask in one-to-ones, but not more broadly. We're definitely more focusing on the second option, wellness, mental health, not necessarily cognitive. And I think that's
yeah,
that's where I would probably start with Ian is ask them. And I think that's where you're getting to too, isn't
yeah,
it?
exactly,
Um,
exactly. So I think really understanding what people's challenges are is so helpful because you've said that one of their challenges is overthinking, and that definitely contributes to brain fog. It contributes to overwhelm. But there are specific things that you can do to help people with overthinking, which is about, some of it is about cognitive restructuring, so changing, teaching people to think in different ways, teaching people how to manage their attention better, because when one of the things we see is that people struggle to focus, right? And we know that that has got worse. So people's ability to focus their attention has got progressively worse over time. And sometimes workplaces make that harder by having constant interruptions and having constant meetings. So there are things that workplaces can do to both to remove those barriers, remove extra interruptions to give people quality focus time, but also there are things that individuals can do, but often they haven't been trained on it. So people will have mental health training at work, but they don't tend to have cognitive health training at work. So that's one of the things that I would really recommend, is that you start introducing cognitive health training at work. So helping people to develop those skills, which actually are the skills that people are recruiting for. You want people who can focus and think and innovate and be creative and curious and all of those things. And yet most workplaces don't measure that, and they don't develop it because they're not aware yet that they can, but you absolutely can. And so there are things you can do as a workplace, and there are things that you can do to help individuals in the workplace, whether that's through group training or through individual one-on-one coaching, which is typically more the case for much more senior leaders, that where they can learn how to better manage their focus. And learning how to manage your focus is the most critical thing, because when you choose your attention, you can choose not to think about those negative things that people start overthinking. You can choose to avoid the sort of imposter syndrome thoughts, which are, again, very common, the negative thinking, the catastrophizing, oh, I've done this and now everybody's going to hate me, or they must be saying horrible things about me. And these people are constantly telling me about how much they're overthinking. And that, of course, gets in the way of everything at work. So if you're trying to be creative, as with your team, you've got people at home trying to be creative, but every time they come up with a brilliant idea, then there's this little voice in their head going, oh, they won't like it. That's going to be rubbish. You're hopeless. Nobody's going to like that. And then all of a sudden, you won't see those brilliant, creative, innovative thoughts. You'll see the ones that they think are safer to show, are less likely to get a negative response, particularly from people who are ADHD, particularly from people who have rejection sensitive dysphoria, which you may or may not be aware of, where people fear rejection and get a very, very physical impact, often like a physical gut punch, when they feel that they're being rejected or that an idea is being rejected. And again, those are things that you can train. Those are things that you can help people to learn about and to develop and to overcome. But most workplaces are not yet doing that. So when we think about cognitive health at work, we know that many workplaces, the vast majority of workplaces now, are addressing mental health. They're looking at how we feel, our mood, our emotion. They look at anxiety and depression. They might think about emotional regulation and a sense of well-being. They have well-being weeks. They have mental health weeks. They have mental health first aiders. What they don't tend to have is cognitive health weeks, cognitive health first aiders, or cognitive health trainers, or cognitive health champions, or brain health champions. They don't have a sense of how to help people to focus. They don't have focus weeks, or these sort of different ways of thinking about cognitive health. So I think that the biggest thing that any organisation can do, particularly right now, at a time when we are more distracted than ever, we are more overwhelmed than ever, we're watching more short form media than ever, sleep is more disrupted than ever, our cognitive health is really struggling. So anything that you can do, even if it's a tiny change, to protect people's focus, to help people to focus better, and to better manage their attention, whether you're doing those through brain healthy workplace things, or whether you're doing that by training them as individuals to better manage their attention, or whether you're training leaders and managers how to manage the attention of their team. All of those things will make the most dramatic difference in things like engagement. We see vast increases in engagement. We're seeing increases in productivity, reductions in burnout, because if you're less overwhelmed and you're more able to focus, then you get more done. And if you're less fearful about what people are going to say, you'll come up with more innovative ideas and be happy to share them. And when you are thriving at work and engaged in your work, then the engagement levels go up, and so automatically productivity goes up. So all of those things are now coming out in research. And again, it's very recent research, but we're certainly seeing a vast improvement. This was just a small LinkedIn poll that I did, and this was looking at financial services firms. But the vast majority of people, they might have a bit of awareness about brain fog, but they didn't have brain fog training. And for a quarter of the firms, it was very, very stigmatized. So people weren't even talking about it. And again, that's more common in very senior leaders. They just won't mention it. So anything, again, we can do to destigmatize brain fog, make people realize it's super common, it's way more common than people realize, and that by doing things at work to help everybody's brain function better, it's going to be better for everybody's brain, and not just for individual previously stigmatized populations. Is there another question? Should we have a look at another question?
Yeah, so there's one on Slido. How can I manage a team member? So this is more about the individual who suffers from brain fog, low confidence, and anxiety, and is not performing in their role. So I think it kind of harks back a little bit to what you were saying, but perhaps asked in a slightly different way, so might prompt some more ideas.
Yeah. So there are various questions. I would really encourage you to ask some new questions. And one of the things that I do with organizations is look at the questions that they're already asking their workforce, and sort of add some in that will help to address things like brain fog and burnout. And it might be that you ask questions like, are people experiencing brain fog? But you can also ask questions that will help you understand whether they are doing things which are brain friendly or not. I'll show you an example. So this is a really quick survey that you can just do just now as an example. But how often do you tackle your to-do list in whatever order it appears? So you can just try this now for yourself. So you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
that looks like a priority.
I'm seeing a lot of fives in my answers here.
You should see a few different questions coming up
I
in the
love these
poll.
questions. I love these questions, and they're ones that, obviously we're helping, we're employee survey software, so we're helping a lot of organizations ask questions to employees as part of kind of employee surveys. These are not questions I see an awful lot come
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So, where you're thinking about how to measure kind of cognitive health, or how to understand how colleagues are moving through their day, why they're experiencing brain health, I can see how these would be so useful and
Yes, yeah.
really enlightening.
Yeah, and so one of the things I'd really like to do with you, Lucy, is to make some questions available to the people using Stribe that they can use. I know you've got some already sort of example questionnaires that people can use. It would be great if we provide one perhaps on looking at brain function, or looking at how
Hmm.
cognitive health is working at work, not just mental health. And then people will be able to start seeing, and even better, we'll be able to start getting a bit of a benchmark for
Yeah.
how cognitive health is at work, because at the moment, people just don't know. It's simply, there is no research out there. So if you're thinking about this and going, oh my God, we're so far behind, I can't believe we haven't done this. Please don't feel bad. Nobody is doing this. It's vanishingly rare. Like hardly any companies are yet addressing cognitive health at work. It's such early days. What they are having is massive problems with it. And often those problems are hidden, and often they're mistaken for mental health problems. So people get signed off with mental health. It's not mental health, it's burnout or it's brain fog. It's overwhelm, it's overload, cognitive overload. There's just their brain can't process all the things they're trying to process. So please don't feel badly if you're not yet addressing this, because if you were addressing this, I would be astonished, because it's so rare. Like one person in an audience might be doing something on it. I heard the
Yeah.
other day that Revolut was doing a bit on it, and I was so impressed. It was, it was like one company.
One company,
Yeah,
yeah. So John, I hope that answers your question as well. He has asked how can employees be helped to measure their cognitive health and performance anonymously? So I suspect, employee survey, sharing those results back and creating that discussion
exactly, exactly.
around
So
that.
there's lots of questions. I've just shown a few, but there are so many different ways that we can do this. And also one of the things that I do is working with individuals. We can go into really deep detail about how somebody's brain is functioning, and we can look at all of the things that are brain barriers for them, things that are getting in the way of their brain functioning well, all of the things that they could be doing that would help their brain to function better.
Mhm.
And so we can do that at various different levels. You can do that across, across a whole team at a more shallow level, or you can do it with an individual and go really, really deep into the things that they can be doing that would help them to function better. But just learning, sometimes for people, just discovering that they can actually improve their brain is is such an empowering discovery, because often they're feeling really helpless and hopeless, and it causes a huge amount of depression and anxiety because they worry they're going to be losing their edge and they'll never recover it, and that it's going to be a downward slope. It's absolutely not the case. It does not have to be a downward slope. Can be very much reassuring. So I'm just seeing whether I can. Uh, oh, it doesn't seem to want to page through the answers in the survey for some reason. I don't know why. Um, but I will have a look at the other answers. Presumably, you've got a few questions in that one.
Yes, there was, I think, 5 or 6.
Very strange. I don't know why it's not letting me show the other results, but it's a it's a very um, it's a very, very, very common challenge, and we're seeing it's just huge in all workplaces. So I hope that that has given you some food for thought. I will share the results of this particular Slido afterwards so that you can see what everybody's saying. But typically, it's very, very common that people are doing things that they don't even realize are bad for their brain, and and that there are a whole load of things that they could do, just small changes like learning to do single tasking instead of multitasking, like protecting focused time instead of having back-to-back meetings. Small switches, sometimes that are controlled by the workplace, sometimes that are available to the individual to be able to make those decisions. And by doing some of those things, you will automatically help everybody's brain to function better at work and beyond.
I love that. Thank you so much, Naomi. I can't believe an hour has passed by.
I know, so fast.
That has gone so, so quickly indeed. As I mentioned at the start, and I popped our LinkedIn's into the chat right at the start. But there has
Brilliant.
been such a lovely, busy chat today that it has already been slightly buried. So I will pop them there. Do keep in touch with Naomi on LinkedIn. She is one of the loveliest people you will ever have the joy of crossing paths with. So, any kind of follow-up questions, I know that she would be more than happy to help and support and signpost. Ian, I've noticed your query about cognitive health training resources. I'll follow up with Naomi after, and we'll get some extras sent through following the session. Um, I think for me, it just comes back to, as it does always with our content, working with your employees, asking them questions, and really, it's not that one size fits all approach. There's different approaches and different tactics, different kind of changes that we can do to make sure that all of our workplaces are brain healthy for everyone. And there is, yeah, so much support and resource out there to start really kind of building out these brain healthy workplaces. And it's a really exciting time to be thinking about it. Thank you everyone for joining us on this lovely Tuesday morning. The recording will follow shortly after. And if you are looking at working with Naomi on that brain health piece or Stribe and us on the employee surveys piece, do reach out to us. In the meantime, I hope you all have a fab week and we will be in touch very shortly for the next set webinar series. We're taking a short break in August because everyone else is too, and then we'll be back in September with a new set of webinars. So do keep your eyes peeled for that as well. Naomi, thank you so much. It was so lovely to see you and work with you again, and I'm sure we'll be in touch very soon.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for hosting. And
Thanks.
thank you, everybody, for your brilliant questions and for contributing.
We loved having you. Have a fab day, everyone. See you very soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.